for clay soil. So likewise, whatever we have discussed so far, that is for the Terzaghi bearing capacity. This is another researcher named Skempton who has also provided his bearing capacity theory, and this theory is basically generalized for the clay soil, not for the granular soils. So Skempton analysis is basically applicable for saturated clay, for which please note this denotion, that is phi u. U stands for the undrained state. So this is the angle of internal friction in undrained state, that is considered as zero. Now, as per this theory, the net ultimate bearing capacity expression can be written in this form, that is Cu into Nc, right? So, okay. Okay, so Cu is found out using the following test. Now, this undrained cohesion is found out using the following test. What tests basically are employed to find out the undrained cohesion? First is your unconfined compression test, right? This is UU test. This is a UU test, means unconsolidated undrained test. First one is your. This is what we have learnt in shear strength chapter also. We have like for finding out the shear strength parameter of soil sample, we have different test like consolidated drained test and unconsolidated undrained test, unconsolidated drained test. So likewise we have different test, right? So the first test they are saying, that is applicable for finding out the undrained parameter for clay soil sample, that is unconfined. This is unconsolidated undrained test. Second is your unconfined compression strength test. I hope you all are familiar with this unconfined compression test, where I was explaining you about this undrained cohesion, that is equal to the unconfined compressive strength defined divided by 2, right? So when I am saying unconfined means unconfined compression strength test, this test is basically applicable for the cohesive soils. And in this, what we are doing basically in laboratory, we have a clay soil sample, and that soil sample is placed in the means in a frame, and that frame is basically loaded. And once it is loaded, so why we are using clay soil sample? Just because it can stand on its own. We don't need any vertical support, or a horizontal support can be provided. Likewise, we have seen in triaxial test, where we are basically using rubber membrane to stiffen the soil mass and to basically place on the frame, right? Now in this case, since we are using this clay soil sample, it is having that strength, so that it cannot means it will not require your horizontal support. So this is unconfined compressive strength test, by which we can easily find out this means undrained cohesion, right? That is the compressive strength test divided by 2. Now, vein shear test. When I'm saying vein shear test, hope you all are familiar with this vein shear. We have a means we have a vein, and basically torsion is applied at the top of vein, and thereby there is a shearing in the soil mass. And when I'm saying shearing in the soil mass, so we have certain formulas by which we can easily find out the shear strength of the soil sample, or denoted by sigma, or by tau also, that is shear stress also, we can easily find it out by vein shear test. Now the bearing capacity factor NC is found out by laboratory test and field observation. So in this case, the bearing capacity that NC that is given in your formula, that is QNU is equal to CNC. So this bearing capacity factor NC you can found out by the laboratory test or by using field observations. So here NC is a function of shape of footing and dF by B. This theory does not neglect the shear strength of soil above foundation level. Hence, it can be applied even to deeper footing, that is dF by B greater than 1. So class, please note this point. This last point is very important point. Since we all are familiar with this parameter NC, it is basically a function of shape of the footing, right? And df by b, df stands for the depth of footing, b refers to the width of footing. So it is the ratio basically that is dependent on nc. And in this case, since you can easily see there is no parameter for the depth of footing, so in this case what we can do, uh, we cannot this theory cannot neglect the shear strength of soil. Because why it is not neglecting shear strength of soil over foundation level? Because in this we don't have the df parameter in the expression. That's why this theory can be applicable to the deeper footings as well, as df by b greater than 1 also. Now Skempton proposed the following values of nc according to various types of types and shapes of footing, right? So as earlier we have discussed about the Terzaghi bearing capacity theory, where he has provided certain parameters based on angle of internal friction. So likewise, Skempton had also provided his value of NC as per uh, okay. So Skempton also proposed various values of NC according to the types and shape of footing. So first one is your strip footing. So suppose in your question, if it is strip footing is given and they are asking you that a foundation is laid on a clay soil sample and you have to use Skempton bearing capacity, it means you have to find out the ultimate bearing capacity using Skempton. So in that case, you have to follow these parameters given by Skempton. So first is like NC is equal to 5, 1 plus 0.2 df by b, and in this case your NC will be less than 7.5, right? So if your NC is less than 7.5, you have to use this, and if your NC is equal to 7.5, so you have to use this. If df by b is equal to 0 is given, then NC directly put 5. If you are what you have to do basically, you have to find out the df by b ratio. If your df by b ratio is equal to 0, then you have to consider this NC is equal to 5. So you can easily see from that parameter also that NC expression 5 1 plus 0.2 df by b, if you place df by b is equal to 0, you will find your NC value comes to be 5. And if your df by v value is equal to is greater than or equal to 2.5, right? So if you put greater than or equal to 2.5, you will find your NC value comes around 7.5, right? Now another case is when you have so if you have a square or circular footing, another is your square or circular footing is provided. So in that case, you have to use this formula 6 1 plus 0.2 df by b, and if your df by b is equal to 0, in that case you have a NC value is equal to 6, and if your df by b is greater than or equal to 2.5, so in that case you have to use NC value is equal to 9. Another thing is for the rectangular footing, where we all are familiar with the rectangular footing, where we have a df by b ratio less than or equal to 2.5. If it is df by b ratio, see what we have to do in question. First, we have to find out the df by b ratio, right? So once you have find out the df by b ratio, then you have to find out whether your footing is straight footing, circular footing, or rectangular footing. Now, once you have seen the type of footing and the df by b ratio, simply you can use the expressions to find out the NC values, right? So first case refers to when your NC will always be less than 7.5. So for strip footing, your NC will always be less than 7.5. For square or circular footing, your NC value will always be coming around less than 9. And for this rectangular footing, you have to use these expressions, the expressions that have been provided for you. So you have to find out the df by b ratio, and if it is less than or equal to 2.5, then you have to use the above expression, that is 5 1 plus 0.2 df by b 1 plus 0.22 b by. If your df by b ratio is greater than 2.5, then you have to use NC value as 7.5 1 plus 0.2 b by l. Now, another case is like if in your question everything is given for the square footing. So what you will be doing? You will find out the df by v value, and you will find out the NC for square, right? And once you obtain this NC for square, you will use this expression to find out the NC for rectangular. I hope theory part for the Skempton bearing capacity is clear to all. Is it clear? Okay. So yes. Anybody want to say something? Okay. No problem. Okay, moving on to the example problem 11. I request students to go through this example problem 11 and let me know in case of any doubts. Right, so kindly go through these numerical problems. Now another approach, since we have already seen two approaches, one was Tarzagi approach and another one was Skempton approach. So this is the third approach that is provided by your Mehrov. right? So Meyerhof give a simple Biennial bearing capacity equation for the bearing capacity of the shallow foundation. The most important thing in the equation that it can be applied for any depth of footing. So if somebody asks you what is since we already know about these two bearing capacity, one was Tarzagi and another was Skempton, and why there arise the need of using this Meyerhof approach, right? So what we can say, like for Tarzagi, it was given for the granular soil. Skempton, we can say that it is applicable for the cohesive soils. What about Meyerhof? Meyerhof basically is applicable for the all depth of footing. For means you can use it for the shallow as well as for the deep footing. Now failure envelope is same as per the Tarzagi method, but failure surface was assumed to go above the foundation level. Hence, shearing strength of soil above the base of footing is taken into account, right? So in this case, since we all know about the Tarzagi, in Tarzagi, what we have seen that since the soil that is lying above the foundation level, that will not and mean that will not provide any stability, or that we are basically ignoring or neglecting. That's why we are considering our footing to be on the surface of ground, right, at the ground surface. Now in this case, since it is applicable for means all type of means for all depth of footing, whether it is shallow or deep, right? So in this case we have to consider the soil mass that is lying above the foundation level. That will also basically taken into consideration for the Meyerhof. Now, in this failure surface that we have seen in Tarzagi, that failure surface was not reaching above the ground level, or not reaching the ground level. But in this case, this failure pattern will reach to the ground level also, right? Now, okay. So the expression for the ultimate bearing capacity of as per Meyerhof, it is given by Qu is equal to CNC IC SC DC plus QNQ IQ SQ DQ plus half gamma B N gamma I gamma S gamma and D gamma. So let me explain you this IC SC DC IQ SQ DQ I gamma S gamma D gamma. So this C refers to basically the cohesion term, Q refers to the surcharge term, and gamma refers to the unit weight terms, right? I refers to the inclination of the footing, S refer to the shape of footing, D refers to the depth of footing. So most of the time, see, you can easily see the changes in this expression as compared to the Tarzagi, where Tarzagi has already provided you a general bearing capacity equation for the stray footing laid at the ground surface, right, where the soil mass above the foundation level was ignored. Now, in this case, the Meyerhof has basically considered the inclination into account. Means if the load on the footing is inclined, so that also you can count in this expression. S refers to the shape. Means your shape of the footing will means if you have a different shape other than straight footing also, so you can use a different means a particular value in that, and you can find out the shape also. DC refers to the depth, that also you can encounter in this. Now, with the DI are empirical. So Meyerhof basically has provided the expression for all for the, for shallow also and for deep also, and in this inclination, shape, and depth has been encountered. Now, further, he also gave empirical relations for bearing capacity factors. So the different bearing capacity factors equations are also provided, and I can bet on these, like all these expressions are same as given by Tarzagi, except this n gamma where this 1.4 term is there. I don't know whether the same expressions means whether the same expressions has been used in Tarzagi. NC NQ are same, I think. And gamma, this NQ minus 1, 10 5 only is there in Tarzagi. But in this case, 10 1.45 is there. So kindly compare these two. Means kindly compare these two correlations of NC and NQ with respect to phi term. In case we have a pure clay soil, so we can use this since it is a clay soil, so we can consider internal friction is equal to 0. So NC is equal to 5.40, NQ is equal to 1, and N gamma is equal to 0. Now, to account for the eccentricity of loading, the footing dimensions was also proposed to be modified such that the load become concentric with the reduced dimension of footing, right? So most of the time it happens if you have a square footing or a rectangular footing is encountered. It happens for the most of time the load is not truly concentric with the COG of the footing, it is basically applied at some eccentricity from the COG. So what we have to do, we have to consider the eccentricity also. So you can easily see a load is applied over the footing, that is P is applied, and considerably we have a moment also at the top of column. So you can easily write the eccentricity, means how much eccentricity is there in this footing, that is the moment divided by the load. Now this is the cross section of footing is shown, where we have the length and width. So this is a rectangular footing since these two sides are not equal. So if we have a load that is applied as shown by this point is basically at some eccentricity in x direction and eccentricity in y direction also, right? So this is the length of the footing. So half will be L by 2. If you have to consider this EY in y direction, that is L by 2 minus EY, right? And if it is EX, so in that block you can easily see it is shown by this like B by 2 minus EX. So B by 2 minus EX and L by 2 minus EY are the reduced dimension for a load that is applied at the corner of a rectangular footing, we can say. Now, load carrying capacity. If you want to find out the load carrying capacity of this footing, what you can do, you can simply do this net ultimate divided by the factor of safety. So how you will find out this net ultimate? Net ultimate you can find out using this Mayorov. What you can do, this is Q and Q, is it is written. So simply do Q minus 1, that is Q minus 1, not Q minus 1, Q bracket NQ minus 1, and then IQ SQ DQ, and the rest expression will be same for the Q and U. So now you know Q and V. Factor of safety, you can consider it as a 2.5 to 3. Most of the books they say 2.5. Few books say 3. So you can take any value in between 2.5 and 3. Then what you have to do, multiply it with the area of this enhanced footing mass that has been shown. That is B by 2 minus EX into L by 2 minus EY. So that will give you this load carrying capacity, right? No, what they have done basically B minus 2x. Okay. So what they have done, this eccentricity basically they have subtracted from the effective, means they have subtracted from the total area. So the total width of the footing was B, and this load is basically eccentric with respect to X. I request all to please go through the numericals, because these numericals are important from GATE and engineering services point of view, and your this YouTube point of view also. So please go through these problems. All problems are very easy to do because everything is self-explanatory. But even then, if you are not able to understand, then please call me also. Means I will not get irritated if you call also, right? So do these problems on your own. Okay, so load carrying capacity, I told you that you have to find out the effective area from this particular figure. That is B minus 2EX. If you do, that will give you the effective width. L minus 2EY you do, that will give you the effective length also. That is shown in figure also. You can easily see this is represented by L minus 2EY, that is the effective length, and this is B minus 2EX, that is the effective width, right? Removing the eccentricity in X as well as in Y direction. So simply multiply this effective area with the Q and U divided by factor of safety. That will give you the load carrying capacity, right? Now if somebody asks you what will be the load carrying capacity per unit length, so whenever somebody asks you per unit length, then in that case you have to remove this L minus 2EY. If somebody asks you load carrying capacity per unit width, so in that case you have to remove V minus 2EY. Now Hansen's recommendations. So these are basically the recommendations given by Hansen. So Hansen also proposed a bearing capacity equation. So QU is equal to CNC IC SC DC QNQ IQ SQ DQ plus half gamma B N gamma S gamma D gamma and I gamma. So Hansen also has the same expression as provided by the Mayorov, right? Now the above equation is applicable for the granular soil. So he said that whatever expression I am giving you, this is for the granular soil. Means this soil, means applicable for the granular soil only, and angle of internal friction must be greater than 0. For phi is equal to 0, that is for the purely cohesive soil, Hansen gave another equation, that is QU is equal to CNC 1 plus SC plus DC minus IC plus gamma DF. Or you can simply rearrange this expression and you can obtain it as q net ultimate, not rearranging. Basically, this is the net ultimate where we are removing gamma df from the ultimate term. So this net ultimate will be like this, and nc will be given by nq minus 1 bracket cot phi, right? So this will be given by nc. Now, nq, what they are saying, nq is basically equal to your e raised to the power pi 10 phi 10 square 45 plus 5 by 2. This is the bearing capacity factor, that is nq. Now, SC, DC, IC are Hansen's correction factor for shape, depth, and inclination, right? So n gamma is provided by this expression 1.5 nq minus. So basically, what you have to do for all the means for all the bearing capacity expression, regardless of this Tarzagi, Hansen, Scampton, Mayerhof, you have to mug up these NC, NQ, and N gamma formulas. Why I am saying mugging up these formulas? Because most of the time they will not give you directly the NC, NQ, and N gamma value. But on a very safer note, on a UTU, you will easily get these values. Even though if you won't get these values, they will give you at the back of paper these means how you will obtain these NC, NQ, and gamma means formula it will be provided. But if it is not provided, that is based on your luck only. So please remember these formulas, how you will obtain these NC, NQ, and gamma parameters for different type of varying capacity equations provided by different researchers. Now, now another so eccentric loading treatment will be same as Mayerhof. So in case if somebody asks you the Hansen by Hansen only you have to do the problem. So in that case, and if it is an eccentric load is given, so you have to follow the same recommendation as given or provided by the Mayerhof. Now, another bearing capacity. I don't think whether these bearing capacity, all these bearing capacity equations are there in your syllabus. But since I am considering everything from this shallow foundation, that's why I'm teaching you. So please refer your syllabus and whatever is prescribed in your syllabus, read that much only for your this UTU. But I'm telling you everything in the shallow foundation, considering your gate point and ES point also, and other engineering service exam also. So basic bearing capacity is another bearing capacity provided by basic. So basic has given this expression where he has also used the same expression as given by Meyerhof and this Hansen. So inclination, shape, and depth factors are provided. And in this case, he has given his n gamma, nc, and nq parameter. So this also you have to mug up. Now failure surface is assumed by Veskris is similar to Tarzagi, but the angle of inclination of failure surface with horizontal is 45 plus 5 by 2, whereas in case of Tarzagi, it was 45 minus 5 by 2, right? So in case when you have a basic bearing capacity theory, if you have to draw a failure pattern, so in that case, the failure pattern will be similar as we have seen in Tarzagi, where the failure surface was inclined to the horizontal, that is 45 minus 5 by 2, but in this case, the with horizontal by basic, that is 45 plus 5 by 2. Now another method is Indian Standard Code method. So IS 6403 1981. It basically recommends the equation for calculating the ultimate bearing capacity of shallow foundation as below. So how you will compute this net ultimate? So net ultimate will be CNC, IC, SCDC, QNQ minus 1, IQ, SQ, half gamma b n gamma, I gamma, S gamma, d gamma into W dash. So class, please note this point that W dash is being introduced in this expression for the net ultimate. That refers to your water table correction or modification, we can say, and rest of the terms are same. So in this case, class, please note this also that Indian Standard Code you have to learn by your heart, and this Tarzagi bearing capacity you have to learn, and Mayerhof you have to learn, because most of the time, like in competitive exam also and different exams, these three are basically the most important bearing capacity expressions that we have to remember for long. So, and in Indian Standard Code method, in your gate also, they are asking you this question. So, which researcher NC, NQ, and gamma we are using in Indian Standard? So basically, in basic, whatever we have learned for the NC and NQ and gamma, you can see from this screen. This is as provided by the basic. So for the Indian standard also, we will be following the same N gamma, NC and NQ values, right? Now, if your depth of water table, if depth of water table is below ground, right? If depth of water is below ground, that is a DF plus B, right? So in that day also, I was telling you about this concept that if your water table is too deep, likewise it is shown in this case that is greater than DF plus B. So your water table will be equal to 1, right? And if your water table is at depth is equal to DF, only at DF only it is shown, that is at the base of footing. So in that case, the water table parameter will reduce to half, or the we can say the bearing capacity uh, by this term, that is gamma term, will reduce to half. Now this is for the allow, like for in between case you will have to do the linear interpolation. Now for cohesive soil, net ultimate bearing capacity immediately after construction, that is undrained condition, is given below. So why they are saying immediately after construction? Because after construction, since that soil is fully saturated soil, I can say that will be clay as a moist soil only. So it accumulates a lot of water inside it. So once means before construction, we can consider everything in undrained state. But once the construction is done or construction is going on, the water is simply removing from the pores by the load of the structure. That's why that will be in a drained state. So that's why it is written immediately after construction, right? So immediately after construction means at the means immediately after construction means that will be in the undrained state only. So in that case, you will use only the first term, that is CNC, ICSC, and DC only. This term only you have to use. Now, Now, C must be calculated using undrained condition, right? So in this case, the cohesion that you are considering in this equation, that will be in a undrained state. Now, bearing capacity in clay is for used for the end of construction stability check, right? So whatever bearing capacity that you will obtain in case of clay soil mass, in this case Indian standard, that will be used. Uh, that will be used as a stability check after the construction is over. Now, bearing capacity based on field test. So, whatever we have learned so far, that is basically based on the analytical approach. That is the summation of forces in vertical direction is equal to zero. That concept that they have used initially in the form of Tarzagi bearing capacity. Later on, some extensions has been provided in Tarzagi, where modification in the groundwater table has also been considered. Then shear factor has been introduced, inclination factors have been introduced, water table correction modification, everything has been introduced. So finally, final bearing capacity equation has also been there for us. That is the Indian Standard Code, where everything in that they have been implemented in the same equation, right? Now, whatever we have learned so far, that is based on the analytical approach. Now the bearing capacity computation can also be done using field approach. So first approach is standard penetration test. We all are familiar with the standard penetration test, where 300 penetration, the number of total 300 penetration, the number of blows are required. And for first 50 we are basically discarding. So that is the for total 450 test we are doing. 150 we are discarding and 300 we are considering. And we are finding out the number of blows for that 300 penetration. That is SPT. So these SPT values we are obtaining, that is NC, that is basically corrected for the we have already seen the correction for the effective what we said effective weight, and another was the overburden, right? So that correction also been introduced, and then NC is related with the bearing capacity, that is QU. Now another is plate load test. Plate load test also I have explained you that a load is been applied on a column or a footing we can say. And the cyclic, basically this is not cyclic, basically a repetition in load, and repetition in load is provided, and settlement is computed. So we can easily find out the coefficient of uniform compression in the soil mass, that is load divided by the settlement. Now, SPT test procedure is being shown in figure. The depth of footing is there, width of footing is there, and this 1.5 to 2 times the width that I was telling you. Below that, you won't find any there will be any more that there will be any change in the bearing capacity due to water table, because that will not affect the footing in general. So bearing capacity of granular soil can be calculated by using corrected SPT N value that I have already told you. The values of N is determined at number of selected bore holes, and average value of corrected N is calculated for the depth from DF plus 1.5 2 times width of the footing, right? So what we have to do, we have to find out the N value for the different bore holes that we are doing, and these values are basically corrected, and then average value of all the means average value of all the SPT test we have done on those boreholes will be done. Now, while calculating the average value of N, any value greater than 50% of the average value is discarded, right? So once we are computing this standard penetration test value, if you find any value to be greater than 50% of the average value, so we have to disregard that value. Now, what they have done, they have conducted this SPT test on four boreholes designated by N1, N2, N3, N4, and they have taken average of these four values, and it came around 30. Now, if N3 is equal to your 40, that means this 40 value is greater than your average value of 30. So you have to disregard this N3 is equal to 40, right? So once you remove this N3 is equal to 40 from this expression, everything will be like N1 plus N2 plus N4 divided by 3, right? So that will give you the value. Now, okay. So if your N2 is equal to 48, then also you have to disregard. All right. Now N2, why you are disregarding N2? Because it is coming greater than 45. So N1 plus N3 plus N4 divided by 3, that will give you the average value of this. What to say? That is pretty average. Now, minimum of all the average values of various boreholes are used in the design of foundation. So please note this point that that the minimum of average value we have to consider for the for calculating the average of the SPT value. Now, empirical correlations are also available for n value of the granular soil. So, if your standard penetration value is lesser than 4, angle of internal friction is equal to 25 to 30, relative density. So this is basically the correlation is provided. Suppose two things are provided to you, and third term somebody is asking you, so you can easily refer this table and you can easily find out the third parameter. Now, bearing capacity of the granular soil can also be computed using Terzaghi equation. We all know this. Value of NQ and N gamma can be found out using Peck-Hansen curve or Indian Standard Code method, right? So, this NQ and N gamma, you can use these two methods to find out. Now, another is Tang has also given empirical equation for calculation of bearing capacity of granular soil as below. Now, these are basically the field approach. These are not the theoretical approach. So, Tang's formula is like for the net ultimate bearing capacity of granular soil. So if it is continuous or strip footing, so the net ultimate will be provided by 1 by 6, 3 n square b into rw dash plus 500 plus. So these are basically the, you can easily see the ultimate bearing capacity or net ultimate bearing capacity is directly related with the standard penetration value, that is n, right? And for square and other circular type of footing also, the correlation is provided with respect to the net ultimate. Now, if your df by b is greater than b, or use df is equal to b, if okay, okay, so they are saying if your depth of footing is greater than width, so you have to use df is equal to b in that second expression given by this tank for the square or circular footing. Now you can see these expressions are already means designated like dw and dw dash parameters are provided to you, right? So below fitting is represented by the dash values, and above represented by only single dw. So dw and dw dash are there. Now you can see on the y axis 0.5 to 1 and on the x axis 0.5 to 1. So dw by df, so the ratio is provided to you. Now the SPT test procedure is provided. So how you will do the SPT test? We all know this is SPT test. So I am skipping this SPT test procedure at this moment because we know that it is suitable. Okay, let me go through it quickly. So this test is basically applicable for granular soils. Split spoon sampler is used in the boreholes. So we have to use this type of sampler for taking out the sample from this ground mass. Now, borehole is advanced to a depth at which n value is to be calculated. So, at what depth you have to do the borehole means where it is desired to obtain the n values. Now, split spoon sampler is allowed to penetrate into the soil by applying impact load of 65 kg, having a free fall of 75 centimeter. So, once you have done a borehole, once in a borehole you have done once you have conducted this once you have done this hole in a ground known as bore, right? So, from that up to a desired depth where the SPT value is means is to be found out. So then you have to put the split spoon sampler inside it. So you have to hammer this split spoon sampler so that it can go inside the soil mass and you can take out the soil sample. So an impact load of 65 kg is basically provided at the top, having a free fall of 75 centimeter. Now the sampler is allowed to penetrate for 150 depth, but reading is not noted. That is, number of blows required for 150 penetration is not noted. So this is also aware, means we are already aware of this fact that 150 depth we don't have to consider. So we will simply disregard that 150 Now, then the sampler is allowed to penetrate further for 300 and number of blows required to penetrate the sampler to this 300 is the SPT n value, right? So what they are saying that now the sampler is another for the another 300 the sampler is allowed to penetrate and the reading is found out. That is SPT values. Now the next test is carried out at the level of 750 below the previous test reference level, right? So whatever we have seen so far, that is for the 450 depth we have done. So the next test is carried out at a level of 750 below the previous test reference level. So wherever you have done, so below that means up to 750 depth we have to consider means below 750 depth we have to consider the next test. If borehole data means if borehole depth is large, then interval of next test is taken at a depth of 2.22 meter or at the change of strata. So for every change of strata, you can conduct this SPT value or to a depth of 2.5 to 2 meter. Now, the following corrections are required for n value. This also we have read in soil mechanics, that is the overburden corrections and dilatancy correction. So I'm not considering, means I'm not taking this part, this overburden and dilatancy. We already have seen in soil mechanics. Only formula is considered. This n1 is equal to n naught into 350 divided by sigma bar plus 70. So n naught is the observed SPT value. So once you are doing this SPT test in a borehole, so you will have this n value that will be referred as observed SPT value, and the corrected SPT value will be found out using means for the overburden correction when you will apply. So the effective stress at that level of test where the test has been done, right? So you have to take that effective stress into account, and then you have to use this formula. Now the dilatancy correction, it is applied to the already corrected n values for the overburden. So whatever n values you have been obtained from the correction of overburden, that n value only will be used in this dilatancy. Dilatancy correction is required only if n1 is greater than 15. So only you have, so whatever the correction you have obtained using this overburden, if this value is coming greater than 15, then only you have to go with this dilatancy correction, or else you can disregard this dilatancy correction. So you can in gate also they are asking you where you will be using this overburden and dilatancy. So kindly refer these notes and read it from this, right? So it is written for the dilatancy, it is applicable for the saturated fine sand and silt when your water table is above the test level, means your test level is the fully submerged state. So where you are using this overburden, it will be written to, okay, somewhere it will be written. Okay. Okay, so where you will apply this overburden correction. Since we all know about this fact, once you go deep into the strata, so the soil that is lying at a deeper depth, they are basically more confined, means more packed, more dense. So that's why we have to apply this overburden correction. Now kindly go through these example problems and go through these example problem, right? So the example problem is very perfect example problem where they are using the Peck-Hansen equation to determine the net allowable bearing pressure, and SPT test has been conducted. And so you can please go through this example problem and let me know if you have any doubt. So another is your plate load test, and this test is basically used to calculate the ultimate bearing capacity of soil. Allowable bearing pressure correspond to a particular permissible settlement of foundation. So if a permissible settlement is provided to you, so you can easily find out the allowable bearing pressure, right? And the settlement of foundation itself means how much the foundation will settle. That also you can find it out from the plate load test. So a girder is shown in the figure, and below girder you can easily see a hydraulic jack is there, and pipe arrangements are there. Dial gauge is also provided that will tell you the deformation in the sample or the settlement, right? And third one is, I mean, third last is part is plate. So how much settlement is there in that plate, that will be simply designated by this dial gauge, mean that will be that will come in this dial gauge. Now how much width of the plate you have to consider, means it is written wrongly, I think. Something will be foundation also, that BF. I think 5 times the width of plate will be considered as the width of foundation. Now, plate test has been done according to the Indian Standard 1888 and 1992. Class, please note these Indian standards, because in GATE they will ask you, means what are the standard procedures for, means from where you will find out these standard procedures for doing out the plate load test. So you can easily say that for, as per Indian Standard 1888 1992 plate load test, we can easily see the procedure for doing the plate load test. Now, procedure. So how you will do the plate load test? The procedure is provided to you. So in this case, what you will be doing, you will be having a square or a circular bearing plates of mild steels are used of thickness not less than 25 mm and varying in size from 300 mm to 750 mm. So what we have to do, we have to consider a circular or a square footing. Then the thickness of, we have to remember that the thickness of bearing plates must not be less than 25 mm, so it should be greater than 25 mm, and their size may vary from 300 mm to 750 mm, right? Now when I'm saying size, basically refers to the diameter and the width or length, or if it is a square then only width or any dimension. So smaller size plate are used in dense or stiff soil, whereas larger plate are being used in loose or soft soils, right? So please note this point when we are doing plate load test. We are using smaller plates for the, means for the stiff type of soils or for the dense soil. But if we have a loose soil or a clay soil, we will be using larger plates. Now, in this case, what we have to do, we have to make a pit of dimension. That is what I was telling you. That is the width of foundation is greater than 5 times the width of plate, right? So you have to make a pit in which you will be laying out or you will be placing your plate. So whatever width or dimension of the plate will be 5 times of the width. Basically, you have to dug a hole or you have to create a pit, and test plate is placed in the center, and then you have to put a test plate that will be laid at the center. Now this test is carried out at the level of proposed foundation, and if water table is above the level at which the test is to be carried out, then water is pumped out before placing the test plate. So class, please note this point. Whenever we are doing this plate load test, we have to make sure that the water table may not be there in the test pit. And if it is there, with the help of centrifugal pumps or another necessary arrangements, we can simply remove the water from the test pit. Now this a load of 70 gram per centimeter square is first applied and released after some time. So what you have to do, once you have placed the plate in that pit, and then you have to apply a load that is equal to 70 gram per centimeter square. right? So once you applied this load, then you have to release it for after the some time. First you have to apply, then you have to release. Now loads are applied on the test plate in increments of one fifth the estimated safe load up to failure, right? So what you have to do, you have to apply the load on the test plate in increment of one fifth the estimated safe load up to failure. So you have to find out the safe load, and for the safe load, one fifth only increments you have to provide on the plate, or at least until you will get a settlement of 25 whichever is earlier. So on the test plate, one fifth times the safe load, that increment basically, suppose, let me explain you with an example. Suppose 200 gram per centimeter square is the safe load that is coming onto the plate. So one fifth of 200 will be how much? 40 gram per centimeter square. So in this increment, basically, like first you will use this 70 gram per centimeter square. Then the next increment will be 75 plus 4, means 70 plus 40. So it will be 110 gram per centimeter square. Then another 40 will be applied. 150 gram per centimeter square is applied. So likewise, increment of one fifth the safe load you have to apply, or the settlement of 25 whichever you will get earlier, that you have to do. At each load, settlement is recorded at time intervals of 1, 2.25, 4, 6.25, 9, 16, and 25 minutes, and thereafter at intervals of 1 hour, right? So once you apply a load, what you will do, you will simply note the settlement of the plate for the different type of load. So suppose 70 gram per centimeter square is first applied, so you have to use your stopwatch, that is 1 minute, then 2.25 minute, how much settlement of the plate is there, that you have to record in a sheet. And once you have seen this 25 minute, then at the intervals of per hour you have to do the same methodology. The load settlement curve can be plotted from the data obtained. So whatever data you are obtaining, that the load and the settlement it is shown, so you will plot a graph. So in a shorter duration test, settlement is only the immediate settlement. So please note this point. If your test is a very shorter duration test, so that will simply give you the immediate settlement. It cannot measure your consolidation settlement. That is why it is not relevant for clays, right? So that is what it is written. That is, this test is applicable for granular soil. Why this plate load test is used for granular soil? Because in the clay soil mass, we will not get the defined picture, because because in clay we have the consolidation settlement, in granular soil only we have the immediate settlement. And this test is basically not this test can be applicable, but if you are using this test for the short duration, applicable for the granular soils only. So for clay, settlement criteria is very much important in the determination of allowable bearing pressure of foundation. So whenever we have the clay soil mass, we have to check for the consolidation settlement also, not for the immediate settlement. So in above load versus settlement plot, curve A shows a distinct peak. So in this case, curve A, you can easily see a distinct or a defined peak is shown. That is, the ultimate bearing capacity can be easily find out corresponding to this peak intensity. Whereas when the failure is not clearly visible, as in curve B, then the ultimate bearing capacity is found out by the double tangent method, right? So in this case of the curve B, you can see a defined peak is not shown. That is what they have used this double tangent method, where two tangents are being drawn, and the intersection of these tangents basically will give you the ultimate load.